The laughter wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut through skin. Soft chuckles. A few sideways glances. A poorly hidden smirk from a woman holding a champagne flute. And right in the middle of it all, Anna stood frozen. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. She wasn't rich, or glamorous, or important. Just a quiet woman with a borrowed dress and shoes half a size too tight, trying to blend in with the kind of people who dined on words like prestige and legacy. The grand piano stood in the corner like a beast waiting to be challenged. Shiny. Intimidating. Gleaming under the soft yellow lighting of the Carlton Hall ballroom. Anna hadn't touched a piano in 12 years. Not since that night. Not since the hospital. Not since the silence. But someone, some cruel, bored guest, had found out. Maybe it slipped from her lips earlier when she was trying to make small talk. Maybe someone overheard her mention the conservatory she'd once attended, long before her world collapsed. Or maybe they just needed a laugh. Now they were all watching. "I hear you used to play," said a tall man with silver hair and a smile like a trap. His voice was loud enough to draw attention, but polite enough to sound innocent. Anna's mouth went dry. "It's been years," she said quietly, glancing around. "Come on," another voice joined in, a woman in a sparkling blue gown with teeth too white to be real. "Just one song. For old time's sake." And then the murmurs started. Is she scared? Wasn't she supposed to be a prodigy? Maybe it was all talk. Anna's heart thudded so loudly she could barely hear the music playing in the background anymore. Her fingers twitched at her sides. The wine she'd barely sipped turned to stone in her stomach. She could walk away. No one would stop her. But then again, they might laugh even harder. A waiter passed by with a tray of desserts. Her reflection flickered in a polished silver spoon, calm face, shaking hands. Her breath was shallow. Her spine stiff. Then, without another word, she walked toward the piano. A hush fell over the small crowd gathered near the grand instrument. Even the jazz band in the background seemed to quiet down, sensing something. Her heels clicked softly against the marble tiles. She reached the bench. Saturday. Rested her hands gently on the keys. Cold. Foreign. But, familiar. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were inching closer. A few people leaned in, curious. Others looked on with amusement, phones subtly tilted to capture what they expected to be an awkward performance. Her hands hovered. Then she closed her eyes. And played. At first, it was shaky. A single note. Then two more. Her muscle memory faltered, and for a terrifying second, she almost stopped. But then, something clicked. The melody came from somewhere deep. Deeper than memory. It wasn't a song she'd prepared or even consciously remembered. But her fingers knew it. It poured out of her, soft. At first, then fuller. Stronger. Richer. The music filled the hall. Conversation stopped. Wine glasses were lowered. Phones remained frozen in hands. Anna was no longer in Carlton Hall. She was in her childhood living room, her mother humming in the kitchen, her father reading the newspaper. She was in that recital hall at 16, her teacher whispering, "Let the music speak." She was back. Each note told a story, of heartbreak, of silence, of losing and finding herself again. And everyone in that room felt it. Even the man with the silver hair leaned forward, his arrogant expression melting into something else, something softer. Confused. Awestruck, maybe. The woman in the blue gown blinked twice, her lips parted but silent. And still Anna played. The song shifted, growing more intense, climbing higher, then slowing, falling, almost breaking. And then it stopped. No flourish. No bow. Just silence. For a second, no one moved. Then a single clap. Then another. Then the room erupted. But Anna didn't hear them. She stood slowly, her chest rising and falling with the weight of emotions she hadn't felt in years. Her hands were trembling again, but not from fear. From release. Someone said her name, but she was already walking away. She didn't need their applause. Not tonight. She stepped out onto the balcony, the cold air shocking against her skin. The night was quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the stars, blinking back the tears that finally came. 12 years. 12 long years. Behind her, the door opened. Anna? She turned slowly. It was the woman from earlier. The one in the blue gown. The woman hesitated. That was incredible. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Anna shook her head. It's fine. No, the woman said gently, stepping closer. It's not. We were being cruel. I thought you were just someone pretending. Anna smiled faintly. I was pretending. There was a pause. Then the woman said, "Where did you learn to play like that?" Anna hesitated. And then, for the first time in over a decade, she said it out loud. My mother taught me. She used to say music was the only truth that didn't change. The woman nodded slowly. She must be proud. Anna's smile faded. She's gone. Oh. She died 12 years ago. The day I stopped playing. A heavy silence settled between them. I'm sorry, the woman said softly. I didn't come here to play, Anna whispered. I just came to feel normal again. The woman stepped forward, her tone more serious now. I think there's more to this story, isn't there? Anna looked out at the night again. Yes, she said. Much more. The ballroom had returned to its buzz. People were talking again, laughing, eating, sipping wine, but something had shifted. Anna felt it. The way people looked at her had changed. The mockery was gone. Now there was curiosity. Respect. And something else she couldn't quite name. She stayed outside for a while, letting the cool air hold her. It was strange, how music could tear something open inside her, and yet, also put it back together. Like she'd split in two and rebuilt herself in one breath. But she also knew this night had awakened something she wasn't ready to face. 12 years of silence didn't go away with one song. She walked back in quietly, hoping to disappear into the background. But before she reached the far corner of the room, someone blocked her path. A man. Mid-30s. Clean-shaven. Soft brown eyes behind sharp glasses. I know you. Anna stopped. I saw you perform in Vienna. Must have been 15 years ago, he said, smiling like he'd found a rare book. You were just a teenager. Everyone called you the Storm in Silk. You remember? She remembered the nickname. She hated it then. Too dramatic. Too wrong. I don't perform anymore, she said quietly, attempting to pass. But why? He asked. That was one of the most haunting performances I'd ever seen. You had the room spellbound. You disappeared after that. Rumors flew, injury, mental breakdown, family death. I never knew what was true. She gave him a small, polite smile. Maybe none of it was. He chuckled, unsure if she was joking. She walked past him without another word, pretending she didn't hear when he called her name again. By the time she slipped into the coat room, the air felt heavy again. Not with music this time, with memory. The night had shaken things loose in her. Memories she'd buried deep, where no one could reach them. Her mother's hand on her shoulder before that final concert. The tension in her father's voice when the doctors called. The keys that felt like knives the last time she sat at the piano. The silence of the hospital room. The slow beeping of machines. She closed her eyes. There had been a moment, 12 years ago, when everything she loved turned to dust. When music stopped being beautiful and became a ghost. She remembered dropping out of the conservatory. Selling the grand piano her mother bought her. Locking her old sheet music in a wooden chest and shoving it into the attic. She became someone else. Someone quieter. Safer. Until tonight. She reached for her coat and stopped. Tucked into the inside pocket was a small folded note. Her brows furrowed. She hadn't put anything there. She opened it. Just one line, written in neat cursive. You shouldn't have played tonight. They're watching. Her chest tightened. She looked around the coatroom, but no one was there. Was this a joke? But something about the handwriting, it was oddly familiar. And the way the words were written, no signature, no flourish, felt cold. Purposeful. She folded the note and slipped it into her purse. The rest of the night passed in a blur. She said polite goodbyes, avoided eye contact, and quietly slipped out before the event ended. She didn't remember driving home. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, her eyes scanning every car in the rearview mirror. By the time she entered her small apartment, her chest felt hollow. She locked the door. Twice. Then pulled the note out again. They're watching. Who? And why? She poured herself a glass of water but barely touched it. Her eyes kept drifting to the piano in the corner of her living room, a small upright Yamaha, covered with a thick beige cloth. She hadn't uncovered it in years. It sat there like a sleeping animal, harmless and still, but waiting. And now the music was back in her head. But so were the warnings. She sat on her couch and stared at the note. Then slowly opened her phone and searched through old emails. She found one, unopened, unread, from nearly 2 years ago. Subject: We need to talk about your mother's files. From a name she hadn't seen in a long time, Dr. Lowell Harris. Her finger hovered over it. Dr. Harris had been her mother's colleague. A brilliant but paranoid researcher in the field of auditory neurology. He and her mother used to spend hours talking about sound frequencies, the power of music to affect memory, emotion, even physical healing. It had always seemed too strange, too complicated. Like science fiction. She had ignored the email back then. She didn't want anything to do with her mother's past. Or hers. But now. She opened it. Anna. I've respected your silence. But I need you to understand something. Your mother's research didn't just disappear. It was taken. She was on to something. And people knew. Her death wasn't an accident. Please. Before they come for you too, look inside the piano. The one she gave you. Anna stared at the screen. The piano. The beige one? Her mother never saw that piano. She bought it herself years after her mother's death. Unless. Her breath caught. Was he talking about the piano? The grand one from her childhood? The one she sold? She shot up from the couch and pulled out an old storage box filled with paperwork. It took nearly 20 minutes, but she finally found it, the sales invoice. Sold to Carlton Hall Conservatory, Special Collections. Her hands trembled. She had played that piano tonight. The same piano her mother gave her. The same piano that might still hold something. Her head spun. She'd sold it to get rid of the past. To forget everything. But now, the past had come back. And it had a message. The next morning, Anna returned to Carlton Hall under the guise of retrieving a lost bracelet. The receptionist gave her a curious look but allowed her in. The ballroom was empty. Sunlight spilled across the floor. And the piano was still there. She walked toward it slowly, as if afraid it might disappear. She ran her fingers along its side, the wood cool and smooth beneath her touch. Then she knelt beside it, inspecting the underside. Nothing. She opened the lid, checked the keys, the hammers, even the bench. Still nothing. Until she noticed something odd near the music stand, a small seam in the wood that didn't match the rest. She pressed it gently. Click. A tiny panel popped open. Inside was a velvet pouch, old and faded. She pulled it out, heart hammering. Inside. A USB drive. A faded photograph, her mother, standing beside the piano, holding a notebook. And a folded letter, sealed with wax. Her hands shook as she opened the letter. Anna. If you're reading this, then something has happened. The research is no longer safe. You may not believe in what I've studied, but music holds power. Real power. And not everyone wants the world to know that. What we discovered, it's not just science. It's memory. Control. Influence. Emotion. They'll try to silence it. They already did. Please protect what's left. Trust no one. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at the USB drive. Then at the piano. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed across the hall. She turned. A man in a maintenance uniform stood at the far end, watching her. Too still. Too focused. Her instincts screamed. She quickly tucked the items into her bag, stood, and began walking away. The man didn't move. He just spoke one line, his voice calm and chilling. You shouldn't have come back, Anna. Anna didn't answer the man. She couldn't. Her feet were already moving, fast, controlled steps across the polished marble floor of the conservatory's hall. She didn't dare run. Not yet. Not until she was sure. She glanced over her shoulder. He was still there. Just watching. No movement. No sound. But that stare, it was cold. Focused. Like he wasn't really a janitor. Like he wasn't there by chance. Anna pushed the main door open and stepped out into the cold daylight. The fresh air hit her like a slap, but it didn't calm her. It only sharpened her fear. She didn't look back again. Back at her apartment, she locked the door behind her and pulled the curtains closed. Her bag hit the table, and she dumped out the contents, the pouch, the photo, the letter, and the USB. The letter kept playing in her head. Trust no one. Even reading it again made her hands tremble. She looked at the USB drive like it might explode. It felt dangerous, like a live wire. Her mother had hidden it for a reason. And now someone had followed her. Warned her. She took a shaky breath and walked over to the old laptop she barely used. It was the safest option, no cloud syncing, no saved logins. Almost entirely offline. She plugged the USB in. One folder appeared. Echo_proof. Inside were 3 files. A PDF labeled Core Findings, MH. A folder named Audio Trials. A video file, urgent_watch_first. She clicked the video. Her mother appeared on screen. Alive. Pale, exhausted, but alive. Her long dark hair was tied back, and she wore a hospital gown. Her face looked thinner than Anna remembered. Shadows sat under her eyes. She began speaking quietly, like someone afraid of being overheard. If you're watching this, I'm either gone, or I've been silenced. My work, it wasn't just about sound and memory. We found something deeper. Music can influence thought. Real thought. Not just mood or feeling, actual brain signals. Emotional response. Trauma reversal. Even, behavioral shift. Anna's heart thudded. We recorded frequency ranges never mapped before. Subtle patterns buried in classical compositions that could trigger specific emotional states: joy, trust, fear, even obedience. They're not supernatural. They're scientific. Repeatable. She paused and looked straight into the camera. But that power is dangerous. And someone found out. Someone with reach. We called it Project Echo. Anna felt her throat dry up. They offered to fund it. Said it would be used for healing, for therapy. But I found out they were testing the tech on vulnerable groups, veterans, prisoners, even children. Anna gasped. I tried to stop it. I leaked documents. The next week, the lab burned down. The files disappeared. And 2 of my team died in accidents. I went into hiding. But they found me. I started hearing music, strange patterns, outside my home. In the supermarket. On the radio. They were using our own discovery on me. Her mother leaned closer. Anna, the music you hear, it's not always music. Sometimes it's a weapon. The video ended. Silence filled the room. Anna sat frozen. The idea was insane. Music that could control emotion. Mind signals. But then again, hadn't she felt it herself? That strange moment when she played at the gala, the way the room changed, the people, the air. She opened the next file, Core Findings, MH. It was dense. Technical. Charts, brain scan images, test results, frequency graphs. But the opening paragraph chilled her. We discovered a pattern, a set of subsonic tones embedded within classical works, specifically certain piano pieces. These frequencies are not perceivable by the ear, but the brain registers them. The result, powerful emotional stimulation. Like being drugged, without the drug. Anna closed the file. She turned to the folder labeled Audio Trials. There were 5 files. All labeled with code names. Trial_03_obedience. Trial_07_weep. Trial_11_anger. Trial_14_calm. Trial_18_recall. Her finger hovered over one. But she didn't press play. Not yet. She didn't need proof to know her mother had been right. She needed help. But who? She couldn't go to the police. What would she say? My dead mother's research is being used to control people with music. She couldn't go to the media. She'd be called crazy. She needed someone who had seen this before. Someone who believed her. And then she remembered the man from the gala. The one who said he'd seen her in Vienna. She still had his business card in her purse. She grabbed it and read, Julian Reeves, music historian and cultural analyst. Independent researcher. Julian answered after just 2 rings. Hello? It's Anna, she said quickly. From the Carlton event. A pause. You remembered me. I need to talk to you. In person. There was another pause. Then, meet me at the Gray and Finch coffee shop on 14th. Back booth. Come alone. Julian was already there when she arrived. He looked the same, quiet, serious, observant. Like someone who spent more time in libraries than in conversation. She slid into the booth across from him and pulled out the pouch. He stared at it. You found it, he said, voice low. You knew? He nodded. I've been looking for it for years. Your mother's notes were legend in our circles. Half the field thinks she was a genius. The other half thinks she went mad. She didn't, Anna whispered. He looked at her carefully. Tell me everything. She told him. About the video. The piano. The man in the hall. The files. The music. He didn't interrupt once. Just listened. When she finished, he leaned back. You said you played the piano at the gala. Did you feel it? She nodded. Like I was someone else. Or something else was in me. He exhaled. That confirms it. Confirms what? Julian leaned forward. Your mother didn't just discover something. She unlocked something. Ancient. Music has always been tied to power. Think of it, religious chants, war drums, lullabies. Sound has always been used to move people. But she proved it could be engineered. Designed. Anna looked at him. So what now? Julian tapped the table slowly. If the files are real, and I believe they are, someone will come for them. They already are. You need to disappear. Disappear? Leave your apartment. Ditch your phone. Stay somewhere no one knows you. I'll find a safe place to store the drive. But if they catch you... He didn't finish. Anna's heart was racing. I'm not running, she said. Julian's expression changed. You don't understand. No. I've been silent for 12 years. I let fear win. I buried my past, my gift, everything. But if they used her work to hurt people, if they killed her for it, I want to expose them. Julian studied her. And then, quietly, he nodded. There's one person who might help. He worked with your mother, secretly. A sound engineer named Callan Reese. He vanished after the lab fire. I heard rumors he moved off-grid. North, maybe Canada. If he's alive, he's the only one who can confirm what we're dealing with. Anna felt the ground shift beneath her. A new direction. A new name. Help me find him. Julian gave a small smile. You really are your mother's daughter. That night, Anna packed a single bag. Left behind her apartment, her phone, her life. She and Julian would leave by morning, heading north. Into the cold. Into the unknown. But as she zipped her coat and turned out the light, she heard something. A low hum. Almost like music. But off-key. Twisted. She froze. It was coming from outside. From a parked car. A tune on loop, faint, but deliberate. A piano melody. Her melody. The one she played at the gala. The message was clear. They were already one step ahead. The cabin was miles from the nearest paved road. Tucked between frost-covered pines and half-frozen streams, it looked like something out of an old black-and-white photograph. A crooked chimney, smoke drifting into the winter sky, and thick snow all around. Anna stood in the middle of it, shaking snow off her coat. Julian dropped the bag near the door, breath visible in the cold air. This is the place, he said. Callan Reese lived off the map. Nearest neighbors 10 kilometers away. Anna scanned the cabin. A fireplace crackled in the corner, and a few logs sat stacked nearby. No electricity. No modern tech. Just a wood stove, 2 cots, and a small table. It felt like stepping back in time. You think he's really here? She asked. Julian walked toward a dusty bookshelf and ran his fingers across the titles, all related to sound theory, neural frequencies, acoustic resonance. If anyone could stay invisible, it's Callan. Anna rubbed her hands together for warmth. Her body still buzzed with the memory of the music from the car outside her apartment. They knew who she was. Where she lived. What she had played. And now they were letting her know they were watching. Julian tossed her a wool blanket. Rest for a while. If Callan's alive, we'll find him. But we need to move slowly. The kind of people behind this, they don't lose things. And right now, you're not lost. You're hunted. Anna barely slept that night. Every sound outside jolted her awake, a snapping twig, the howl of wind, the creak of the cabin's wooden frame. The silence was heavier than she expected. It wasn't peaceful. It was watchful. At sunrise, Julian left with a pair of snowshoes and a map. There's a logging trail nearby, he said. Used to be monitored by the Canadian Forestry Department. If Callan's receiving supplies, it's coming through there. Anna stayed behind, organizing the files they brought, her mother's USB, printed transcripts from the drive, and the music samples. She stared at the audio files again. Trial_07_weep. Trial_11_anger. She wondered what would happen if she played one. Could it really trigger emotion? Could it force a response? She put on the headphones, selected trial_14_calm, and hesitated. Then she hit play. At first, there was only a hum. Soft, almost melodic. A single tone repeated beneath layers of gentle piano, too quiet to call a melody, but too structured to be noise. And then, something happened. Her breath slowed. Her heart rate dropped. The panic in her chest, gone. She felt like she was floating. Not in a drugged way. In a deliberate way. Like someone had reached inside her and pressed a reset button. She ripped off the headphones, gasping. It worked. It actually worked. Her mother hadn't lied. The frequencies could control feeling. But what if others were already using it for darker things? Julian returned late, his face pale from the cold. I found a trail, he said. Old snowmobile tracks. Led me to a bunker, underground. Hidden beneath the trees. Anna stood up. Is it his? I didn't see him. But there was equipment. Old tech. Recording gear. Soundproof walls. And this. He held out a cassette tape. A real, actual tape. Anna took it, eyebrows raised. There's a recorder in the back room, Julian said. It might be his voice. They rushed to the back, where a dusty tape player sat among broken chairs and cracked crates. Anna inserted the tape and pressed play. A crackle. A click. And then a voice. Male. Rough. Older. If you found this, I'm probably gone. Or close to it. Anna and Julian exchanged a glance. This technology was never meant for control. It was designed to heal. Music that could trigger memory, pull people out of trauma. I saw soldiers cry when they hadn't spoken in years. I saw a boy with no family remember his name after hearing a single chord. His voice cracked. Then turned bitter. But they wanted more. They wanted to manipulate crowds, behavior, loyalty. We called them the Echo Group. They said it was national security. But I saw what they did to people. The side effects. The testing. That's when I ran. The tape clicked. A long pause. Then. If Anna Gray is listening, yes, I knew your mother. She was the only one who refused them. She paid the price for that. Anna froze. There's one last key. One final sequence your mother encoded into her music. A wake-up chord, hidden in the fifth variation of her winter movement. It can reverse emotional imprinting. Break the conditioning. But you have to perform it. Live. Julian leaned forward. Conditioning? Anna whispered, you mean, people who've been programmed? The tape clicked again. The echo group knows. They're tracking frequency signatures. If you play it, they'll come. But if you don't, no one will ever be free again. End of tape. Anna sat in stunned silence. Her mother's final piano piece, the one she had refused to share publicly, wasn't just a composition. It was a counter-program. A hidden key to undo everything. But how do I know it's real? She asked. How do I know it's not just another experiment? Julian looked at her carefully. You said you felt something at the gala, when you played that improvisation. What if you brushed against it accidentally? What if that's why they noticed you? She shook her head. Even if I wanted to perform it, where would I do it? I'd be exposing myself. You'd be doing more than that, he said. You'd be declaring war. That night, Anna pulled out the handwritten notes her mother had left in the pouch. In the margin of one page, she spotted something she hadn't seen before, tiny music notations, scribbled next to a phrase. V5, W.M, reverse A3 subtone. She took out her notebook and began copying it, note by note, using her mother's old method of frequency tagging. Hours passed. Snow kept falling outside, thick and soundless. But Anna didn't notice. She was working on the most important song of her life. The next day, Julian made a phone call from a nearby ranger station using a secure line. When he returned, his face was tight. They know, he said. Anna stood up sharply. What? Someone tapped into the ranger frequency. When I asked about sound engineers in the area, they asked me a strange question, whether I believed in corrective melodies. That's an echo term. Internal use only. Anna's pulse jumped. So what do we do? Julian placed a map on the table. We go public. Carefully. There's a performance hall in Vancouver. It's closed for winter maintenance, but I have a contact there. If you perform your mother's piece live, in front of an audience, we stream it. Real time. No way to stop it once it starts. Anna stared at him. You want to use her song as a weapon? No, he said. As an antidote. 3 days later, they arrived in Vancouver under fake names. The hall was beautiful, high ceilings, velvet seats, golden balconies. And at the center, a Steinway grand piano. Anna sat down at it like it was a memory. Her fingers hovered above the keys. The melody was inside her. Waiting. They had invited a small audience, musicians, historians, trauma survivors, and set up streaming equipment with independent media. No authorities. No big names. Just truth. Julian stood off stage, ready. As Anna took a deep breath, she felt the notes rise inside her. This wasn't just about her mother. This was about all the people whose minds had been taken, twisted, drugged by something they couldn't even hear. She pressed the first key. Outside the hall, a black SUV pulled up. 3 men stepped out. Dark coats. No logos. One of them put a hand to his ear. She's started, he said. Then we're out of time, the other replied. And they walked toward the doors, not to listen, but to stop the music. The lights dimmed. The velvet seats of the small Vancouver hall were filled, not by critics or media giants, but by a carefully chosen group. Musicians, survivors of war and trauma, doctors who studied music therapy, and a few trusted reporters with live stream access. The goal was simple: witness history in real time. Anna sat at the grand piano, hands hovering over the keys. Her mother's sheet music rested on the stand. But she wouldn't need to read it. She had memorized every line, every pause, every impossible frequency her mother had embedded into the composition. Julian stood backstage, watching through the curtains, phone in hand. The live stream was live. Over 3,000 people were already watching. Anna took a slow breath. And then, she began. The first notes of the winter movement, fifth variation, were soft. Light. Like snowfall on glass. A minor chord sustained gently under a subtle shift in tempo. The kind of beauty that didn't scream for attention but lingered like memory. But it wasn't just music. Every note was calculated. A mathematical resonance designed to target frequencies linked to the emotional centers of the brain. Callan Reese had called it neural unlocking. Her mother had called it healing. Anna called it the only truth she had left. The hall was silent. You could have heard a breath drop. Outside, the SUV sat parked at the curb. The three men inside watched the stream on a tablet. "She's triggering theta frequencies," said the one in the front seat. The man in the back removed his gloves. "Go," he said. "Shut it down." Two of them exited the SUV and moved quickly toward the entrance, their faces cold with purpose. On stage, Anna felt her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm. The chords shifted, moving into the hidden pattern. She imagined her mother sitting beside her, whispering, "Hold the sustain, just a second longer. Let them feel it." And they did. In the third row, an older woman began to cry silently, her hand pressed to her chest. In the back, a child with autism who hadn't spoken in months suddenly reached for his mother's hand and whispered, "I know this song." The frequencies were working. They were unlocking. But backstage, Julian saw movement. Two men. Dark suits. Too fast, too direct. His chest tightened. He stepped toward the stage entrance just as they burst through. "Turn it off," one of them barked, flashing a fake security badge. Julian blocked their path. "She's in the middle of a performance." One man grabbed Julian by the collar, shoving him aside. The other pulled a device from his coat, a small jammer with blinking red lights. He pointed it at the sound system. But just before he could activate it, the piano changed. Anna struck the core sequence. A cluster of notes that sounded jarring, strange, almost wrong. The melody bent, twisted, echoed unnaturally. The man with the jammer stumbled back, gripping his temple. The other staggered into a chair, blinking rapidly. From backstage, Julian stared in shock. The frequencies weren't just emotional. They were neurological. Anna's eyes flicked up. She saw the chaos starting around her. But she didn't stop playing. This was her mother's final message. A melody designed not to please, but to free. Somewhere across the ocean, in a research bunker in Norway, alarms were going off. The Echo Group's central monitoring system had picked up the broadcast, unfiltered emotional frequencies reaching millions through open streams. A gray-haired man in a lab coat leaned toward the screen. "Who is she?" he asked, as Anna's face came into focus. A technician stuttered, "Anna Gray. Daughter of Helena Gray. Music therapist. Unknown to us until this week." The older man narrowed his eyes. "Shut it down. But it's too late. It's everywhere. Reddit, X, YouTube Live. Mirror channels have already copied the stream." He slammed a fist on the desk. Then, almost to himself, he whispered, "She found the key." Back in the concert hall, Julian had regained his footing. One of the agents was unconscious. The other fled the hall, covering his ears. The audience remained in place, eyes wide, faces stunned, tears streaking some cheeks. No one moved. No one could move. Because they were witnessing something bigger than music. They were witnessing the undoing of something terrible. And Anna? She played like her fingers were burning. The music hit the peak, the crescendo. It was chaotic and beautiful all at once. The dissonance was intentional. The chaos had a purpose. She finished the final chord. held it, and let it fade. The hall was absolutely still. Then a single sound, a breath. Someone gasping, as if waking from a dream. Then another. And another. As if the audience had all been asleep. Anna looked up. They were all looking at her. Every person in the room. No phones. No claps. No applause. Just stunned silence. Then a child's voice, "My head feels quiet." Julian rushed onto the stage. Anna stood up, her knees wobbling. "You did it," he whispered. "You actually did it." Anna's voice was barely audible. "They'll come for me now." Julian held up his phone. "They already did. But it's out there. The world saw it. People are talking." Anna blinked. "You kept the stream up?" He smiled grimly. "Of course. That was the plan, remember?" Before she could answer, a woman in the front row stood up. "Miss Gray," she said softly, tears on her cheeks. "My son hasn't spoken in a year. Tonight, during your piece, he said my name." Anna's breath caught. A man beside her whispered, "I remembered something I blocked for 30 years. The sound of my sister's voice." Another said, "I feel like I just woke up from a nightmare I didn't know I was having." Anna's hands trembled. It wasn't just theory. It was real. But the victory was short. Within hours, coordinated efforts began to take down the videos. Channels were flagged. The live stream link disappeared from platforms. Social media trends vanished. Hashtags were removed. The Echo Group had entered containment mode. By morning, only a few fragments of the performance remained online, shaky clips, testimonials, screen grabs. And yet, the story had already escaped. Dozens of listeners claimed they had experienced emotional clarity, relief from depression, even recovered memories. Doctors began questioning whether certain frequency ranges had been suppressed in modern music. Whispers of the Gray effect circulated in forums. And Anna? She went into hiding. Julian helped her disappear, new ID, small cabin in the mountains, untraceable communications. But she wasn't done. Because there was more music. More hidden messages in her mother's compositions. More codes buried in frequencies that only a true musician could detect. Anna spent her days mapping each piece. Rebuilding the counter-frequency language her mother had started. At night, she received messages from all over the world. "I don't know what that music was. But I've never felt so human. My son smiled for the first time in years. Whatever they're hiding, it's not working anymore." But not all the messages were kind. Some were warnings. Threats. "Stop playing. We know who you are. Music should never be used this way." Anna didn't answer them. Instead, she composed. One morning, she received a package. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. And a note written in careful block letters. "There are others like you. All over the world. Some hidden. Some silenced. You are not alone. But you are watched. Choose your next performance wisely." Anna plugged in the drive. A single file. echo_sequence_0.mp3. She hit play. It wasn't music. It was a message. A voice, familiar. Rough. Male. "If you're hearing this, you found the frequency that scares them most. We used to call it the reset. It's more than healing. It's the end of control. And you, Anna Gray, you're the one who must finish the song." It had been 17 days since the performance that cracked something open in the world. Anna Gray was living off the map, no online footprint, no public appearances, no traceable bank activity. Hidden deep within a pine-covered stretch of northern British Columbia, she sat before an old upright piano in the corner of a log cabin. The flash drive she received sat in front of her. She'd listened to the message again and again. You are not alone. But you are watched. She had memorized the sequence. She even tried transposing it into notation. What looked like a random cluster of sounds was, in truth, a coded map. Coordinates, frequencies, tempo changes. Someone had left her the key to something massive. But she still didn't know what. Julian had been gone for 2 days. He was following one of the clues from the drive, heading to an archive center in Oslo. He promised to return with something that would close the circle. Anna stayed behind. She had to prepare. Because the message had made one thing clear. There had to be a final performance. A true global broadcast. A sound the world couldn't forget. But before that, there was a name hidden in the metadata of the file. One Anna hadn't dared to say out loud in years. Her father's. Michael Gray. The man who had disappeared when she was 10. The man her mother refused to speak about, even on her deathbed. Anna had always assumed he'd abandoned them. But now, she wasn't so sure. 3 days later, Julian returned. He looked like he hadn't slept. His coat was torn, and a bruise was forming across his cheek. But in his hand was a folder. Thick, stained, and sealed with a red stamp marked Echo Rejected, Level 5 Clearance. Where did you find it? Anna asked. Julian dropped the folder on the table. It wasn't just an archive. It was a vault. He left this for you. He opened it. Dozens of pages. Schematics. Frequencies. Letters. Photos. And in one of them, her mother. Sitting beside Michael Gray. They were both smiling. And behind them, a whiteboard filled with symbols and notes that looked eerily familiar. Anna gasped. I thought he ran, she whispered. Julian shook his head. He didn't. He was taken. By the same people who hunted your mother. But before they got to him, he left all of this. His final theory. And a plan. Anna flipped through the pages. At the back, she found a note. If you're reading this, then the melody survived. The others didn't. But you can end it. Just follow the coordinates. Play the chord. Coordinates. Again. Anna grabbed a pen. She mapped them. They led to one of the most secure, unlikely places on Earth. An abandoned underground recording chamber beneath Carnegie Hall. It was insane. Dangerous. But it made sense. Her parents had studied at Juilliard. They had performed in those halls. Hidden in the walls, beneath the stage, was a forgotten sound chamber once used to record orchestra pieces during the Cold War. Now decommissioned. Unmonitored. Forgotten. Anna had to go there. And she had to play. They reached New York 5 days later, through contacts Julian hadn't told her he had. A resistance group, anonymous musicians, former data analysts, a few neuroscientists who'd been blacklisted for pushing unapproved studies. The world outside buzzed with tension. Internet blackouts in parts of Europe. Media suppression. Governments claiming a global psychological anomaly following exposure to audio-based hallucinations. People were waking up. But some were going mad. Anna wore a simple black dress. In the dead of night, they entered Carnegie through an old service door. Julian led the way, holding a cracked flashlight. Down narrow passages, beneath wooden staircases, past rusted pipes and moldy tiles, they finally reached a steel door. He punched in the code from her father's note. The lock clicked. The door groaned open. And inside, they found it. The echo chamber. A round, acoustically perfect room lined with soundproof panels. In the center, a Steinway grand piano. Dusty, but untouched. A single microphone stood above it. Julian checked the tech. Everything was wired. But Anna knew what was coming. This wasn't just music anymore. This was rebellion. She sat. Placed her fingers on the keys. Julian gave her a nod and tapped the old console. The light turned red. They were live. Anna took one breath. And played. The piece wasn't written anywhere. It existed only in her memory. In her soul. In the notes her mother sang to her at bedtime. In the strange lullabies her father used to whistle when he thought she couldn't hear. It was raw. Chaotic. Almost ugly. But it reached. The sequence triggered a neural response pattern her parents had discovered years ago. A sonic key to break mass compliance. Around the world, something began to shift. In a hospital in Cape Town, a mute boy began humming. In a subway station in Tokyo, a violinist who'd never read music began playing a perfect harmony. In a prison in Michigan, 5 inmates stopped fighting mid-brawl and sat down, crying. It wasn't magic. It was sound truth. And Anna was its messenger. But it didn't go unnoticed. The Echo Group activated emergency protocols. Drones dispatched. Signals jammed. Servers fried. But they were too late. The performance had reached over 58 million people in under 12 minutes. The message was out. And when the final chord hit, when Anna held the last note until it cracked the silence, the world paused. And for the first time in decades, it listened. 3 days later, Anna Gray was declared missing. Some say she was taken. Some say she escaped and lives under a different name. But a strange thing happened in the weeks that followed. Music changed. Independent composers started uploading frequencies never heard before. People began waking up from emotional blackouts they didn't know they had. Panic attacks stopped mid-symptom. Dreams returned to those who hadn't dreamed in years. A global awakening had started. And at the center of it all was a piece of music called the Gray Sequence. Final twist. 1 year later, in a small village outside Vienna, a child prodigy gave her first piano performance. She had never been trained. Her parents claimed she had never even heard of Anna Gray. But the music she played was identical to the hidden second part of the Gray Sequence. And after her performance, she whispered to her teacher. "A lady showed me in a dream. She said, there's more. In a world full of noise, silence can become a prison. But music, real music, holds the power to unlock the parts of us we forgot existed." What they mocked wasn't weakness. It was her greatest strength. Her truth. And when truth is played loud enough, it can never be silenced again.